All right, so we're live. Welcome everybody to this hangout with myself, Alan Jones, and the awesome and amazing, equally awesome and amazing, should I say, Viv Adcock.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everybody out there.
So we're going to be talking for the next 30 minutes or so about talk to the animals, and that always kind of makes me giggle, because especially with the write-up that you sent me, Viv, which was, calling all the Dr Dolittles, because it was that song, isn't it? I want to talk to the animals. Anyway, so tell me about, what's that all about? So it's a specialty class, is it, from Access? What's Talk to the Animals?
Yeah, Talk to the Animals is basically a 2-day class, and as the name suggests, it's using your capacities to be able to have a greater bond with your animals. How many times do we say, I wish they could talk to us if they're in pain, or if they've got something going on, or they've got a so-called behavioral issue? How often do we say, oh God, I just wish they could talk, or I wish they could tell me what it is that's going on for them. So this class is basically giving you tools and techniques to actually have that communication really easily. It's not difficult. I'd say everybody can do it with a few tools. It's about being able to talk to the animals, and not just domestic animals either. I've worked with, so-called wild animals. I live in Australia, so we have a lot of snakes and spiders and things that would normally make, the average European skin go a bit uncomfortable. But I've actually created an amazing, what we call a communion with the animals, where, guys, you know what? You're welcome in my garden, but this little line here, this is my house. You're not welcome in here. Mm. So, and, people around us say they have all sorts of weird animals coming into their house and it makes them uncomfortable. And I've never experienced that, and people have these ant infestations and that type of thing, or mosquitoes bothering them. And something that I've asked, or something that I've created with the animal kingdom, I don't ever have that at my property. People come and they don't get bothered by mosquitoes. And so it kind of creates a communion beyond the domestic. But I think for me, ultimately, it was to have a better relationship with my dog. And as a kid, I just used to love watching Dr Dolittle and Lassie and Black Beauty and all the animal programs. So it got me curious as a kid as to, I would love to have a different relationship with my animal beyond they're just a dog or a cat or they're a pet. I knew there was so much more available. So in brief, it's a 2-day class about having that relationship, being able to learn how to communicate to the animals, receiving from them in a totally different way than, we would normally. We just, like I say, we project at our animals. They're just the family dog, or it's just the cat or the goldfish or whatever. Well, what if there's a whole other level to our relationship with animals that nobody else has shown us?
Yeah, I've got hundreds of questions I just want to fire at you. So it's kind of, which one do I pick first? And I know kind of we've talked about some of the questions that, I'm going to be asking you, but I guess one of them that really springs to my mind is, what about those people who don't have pets? It's almost like, what the hell has this got to do with me? I don't have, pets. I don't have animals. I live in the city. What contribution could these 2 days be for those people, and why could they join? What would they get out of it?
Great question, Alan. So it's interesting because at the moment I'm traveling, so I don't have my quote unquote animals around me. So I've really noticed their absence in my life, and it's actually helped me realize, wow, they are a massive contribution. It could be the birds, waking up in the morning and listening to the birds. I get to see the most unusual creatures. People say, how do you see that? I've never seen one of those in England while I've been visiting. Or seeing moose in Norway when I recently went to Norway, or, wild animals. So if you don't have your own animal, what this also opens you up to is having a greater communion to basically the earth, to nature, to trees, to everything in everything in the animal kingdom. So even if you don't have an animal yourself, I think there's a curiosity that we have with the animal kingdom. A lot of us take it for granted. We don't hear the birds singing. We don't see the ladybirds or the butterflies flying past. And yet I was facilitating a bars class the other day, and literally out of the back window, it was 2 windows. We saw a butterfly, we had squirrels, we had 4 magpies, we had bumblebees, and we had pheasants walking through this garden. And the girl that was running the bars just went, I can't believe what's going on out in the garden. I've never seen this before. You know, she lives in semi-rural suburbia. And she said, I've never seen anything like this. So I was wondering, with her just being for that time, you know, that time, not doing and being busy and occupied, she actually started to notice the animal kingdom. It was almost as if the animal kingdom was coming more to our awareness because we were starting to be more present. So animals live in the present moment. They don't have a past. They don't have a future. They live in the present moment. So, you know, whether it's pouring with rain, whether it's snowing, whether it's sunshine, they have no point of view. They are totally at one with everything around them. And for me, they add a harmony to the planet. So I just want to share a really quick story. A while ago, I've got a horse, and a while ago we were giving it some lessons to go onto the horse box, into the trailer. And it had obviously had some trauma and didn't really want to go onto the horse box. And I was standing back, and I have a much more, you know, professional friend who has more experience than I do in this. And she was actually doing the physical part of getting this horse onto the trailer. I was standing back, and I could see the horse was quite agitated, but above her, about 3 or 4 feet flying above her, were 4 dragonflies. And these dragonflies were zigzagging across the top. It was almost like in her energy field, if you like. The dragonflies were zigzagging backwards and forwards across her, as if to try and contribute an energy to kind of say, you know what, hey, calm down, it's okay. And it was almost to me as if they were dispersing the agitation that isn't normally in an animal's universe. Animals usually be the whole time, unless they're frightened or their life is threatened. And then about 10-15 minutes later, I noticed 6 swallows then flying in a slightly higher, it was like this flying patterns of these animals. I noticed these 6 swallows darting backwards and forwards, and I went, this is incredible. Are they actually contributing to her energy? Are they doing something for her to help her disperse the agitation? And it was almost as if they were trying, to me, what I saw, they were trying to bring in more harmony into an agitated energy field. So, you know, for me, just to sit back and look at that and acknowledge that, how often do these things happen around us that we don't know? So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that, you know, that just jumped to my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of it. And I think, you know, I think one of the reasons why so many people don't notice that kind of stuff, because they just don't see any significance in it. It's just, oh, well, they just happen to be there. But one of the things that really drew me to this was what you said right at the beginning, in terms of things like not getting bothered by mosquitoes and stuff. It's like, how can, you know, this, for me, what I would get from this, you know, I used to have cats, but that ability to be able to commune with kind of insects and birds and nature around you, going, okay, because I do it often with ours, and just say to them, okay, you can come in our garden, it's a safe haven. You know, it's a place for you to come and eat and stuff and be safe. And we kind of do. And we don't really get wasps in the house. And when they come in the house, I actually just ask them to leave, and they do. And if they don't within 5 minutes, I tell them they're going to die, and then they do.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think there's a whole load of stuff around that. But I think as well, when you were talking, I think pet can also be quite for me, the energy of pet is almost like we're being superior assholes to animals. It's like,
well, it's like, we have this association of I own a dog, or I own a cat, or I own a. It's like, well, what if you change that point of view to, you know what, we're actually a team. We can coexist together in harmony, and there is this incredible gifting and receiving that goes on. Again, something that we don't acknowledge normally, because it's like, well, the dog is supposed to guard the house, or the horse is supposed to carry me on its back, or we give animals roles, we have projections and expectations of them. And that's fine to give them a job. And most animals, especially dogs, are more comfortable knowing what their job is. You know, like your job is to keep you safe in the house, or protect the property, or, you know, kill snakes. Not that that's applicable really in England, but we give them a job, rather than what if that animal is actually contributing a huge amount to us, and I'll say invisibly. So this day and age, we're seeing more therapy dogs going into hospitals. You know, we're seeing more children with these so-called labels, or have anger problems, or they've had drug, abuse, or they've come from broken homes, or they've been sexually abused, working with horses. And they're getting better results with animals than they are with the traditional roles of going to see a doctor or a psychologist or taking medication. So for me, it's like, what else is going on? What else are they contributing to us that maybe we don't cognitively, logically understand? You go into a dentist's surgery and they've got a fish tank there. And the fish tank, the energy of that fish tank and what that creates.
It just calms people, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think there's so much more that animals are wishing to contribute to us. They know when we're a bit sad or a bit flat. My brother recently was, he had some health issue that they'd given a label to, which turned out to be incorrect. But during his 6-week recuperation period, he was on the couch the whole time. He was really low, and my brother's quite upbeat and very active. And the bird, they've got a cockatiel. This bird for 6 weeks didn't want to come out of its cage. It didn't sing once. Normally you can't shut this thing up, chirp, 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 cheep, cheep, cheep all day. The moment he started to get better, the bird perked up. She came out of a cage, and slowly, almost mirroring him, she started to get more chirpy. She started to communicate more. She started to fluff her feathers up and preen herself and fly. And it was, for me, it was absolutely astounding to see the correlation between what my brother was going through and what, a bird this high, what that was perceiving and how it affected her, because he's very much her man. She's a one-person bird, but that astounded me. And my brother's he's not really an animal person, he's not a touchy-feely kind of person, but this bird obviously has such a sense of connection and communion with him. And it wasn't until I pointed it out to the two of them living in the house that they just went, oh yeah, now you come to mention it. Yeah, they hadn't realised. So,
I think it's because we just shut off our awareness about what else is possible and what contribution animals can be for us. And and I think one of the things that really strikes me is that we often yes, we give animals, as you say, we give them roles. We tell a dog, your job is to kind of keep my house safe or whatever, and we give them conflictual jobs, because it's like, we had a dog as a kid, and he was there to guard the house. I mean, he wasn't kind of really a guard dog, but that's kind of what my mum got him for originally. But when he would bark, he would be told off for barking, and if he didn't stop barking, he would then be hit. And it was actually really awful, because on the way, this dog just didn't know what to do, and so he chewed things.
Yeah.
He would just chew stuff in the house. And it's like, how often do we give these animals that we have conflictual kind of roles, whatever, and then get angry with them because they're not fulfilling what it is that we require?
Yeah, and that is a really great point to bring up on the Hangout, because a lot of us, we treat animals as we do each other. Whether a dog is not a human, a cat is not a human, a horse is not a human. They don't speak the same language that we do, and this is where one of the greatest confusion occurs. So, for instance, with the dog, what I started to do with a friend's dog who was barking, I mean, a dog's job, if we, even just mentally think about, right, well, I'll feel safer with a dog in the house. Animals communicate telepathically. So they perceive everything that's going on in our head, everything that's going on within our body, like I was just saying with my brother. Whether we verbalize it or not, and whether we're cognitively aware of it, they sense what we expect of them. So then your dog was trying to fulfill that role. So my friend had a similar dog, and it would bark and bark and bark and bark and bark and bark, and it wouldn't listen to anybody in the house. And so the same thing, it would get told off and it would get smacked. So I said, look, what if you are much clearer with your job's description? What if you could say, okay, great, you're here to let me know, that somebody's at the door. What I'd like you to do is bark once. And as soon as I've heard you, from that point forward, it's my job. Thank you. You've done a great job. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for doing that. I'll take it over from here. I'm the pack leader. Thank you for being a great teammate. Thank you for telling me somebody was here. So what happens, and like you're saying, the conflict comes in because we're not clear with their job. So they think, okay, my job is to protect the house. And so they bark and bark and bark and bark and bark and bark. We haven't acknowledged, number one, thank you for doing a great job. Thank you for doing what I've asked you to do. And if your relationship with your animal isn't working, look at what you've given them as a mixed message. Look at what you've not even said to them, because like I said earlier, people get pets, but they just think they're a dog or a cat and they just sit in the house. No, your cat wants to have a job, whether it's just to give you comfort or to kill the mice or, you know, just to be your companion. But if you let them know this is what I require of you, it's like, okay, cool, I'll fulfill that. And with your dog, okay, I just want you to bark once or twice and then I will take over. Thank you for giving me the information. It's my job now. And so part of the transformation, and this is a question you were asking earlier, part of the transformation with us is we become more aware of what messages we're sending, A, telepathically, and B, we're getting clearer with what we require of our animals so they can fulfill that. We need to be with ourselves first and to go, you know what works for me? What do I want a dog for? What is its job? Then if you're clear, you can be a better leader. You can be clearer in your life as to what you require in your life. So it doesn't just work out with your dog. You start to be aware of your relationships and what people's roles are in your life. You become more clear with what you require as a person. You get to be more, rather than, you know, how you were saying earlier, how we get cut off and we get so busy we don't pick up the dog barking or the bees outside the window or the cows in the grass or an animal coming to us on a regular basis because they're trying to comfort us or change something for us. We don't notice that because we're so busy doing, we're so busy on our head and we're so disconnected from our environment around us. So people often go out to nature for a Sunday walk, you know, whether they've got cats or dogs or not, but they feel a sense of space again. They feel a sense of stillness. They feel a sense of connection, even if it's just with the trees or the park or the lake that they've been to. So animals facilitate us. They invite us constantly to be present with them, to not give them mixed messages. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the messages stuff is what's really kind of popping for me to ask right now is so often when we train our dogs, you know, we take them to these dog training schools and we tell them, you know, this is what you need to do. I remember, did you ever know a woman called Barbara Woodhouse in the 80s? Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and she did it with horses as well, actually. I seem to think she did a show about horses. But what kind of occurs to me is how much we expect animals to communicate the way we do. You know, I hear people, oh, you're a stupid dog because you don't understand what I'm saying. Well, of course it doesn't. It's a bloody dog. It doesn't speak English. Yes. So they don't even speak German. They don't speak French. You know, I mean, they just get used to what it is. So it's almost like animals do speak or commune, let's just say, put it that way, is easier, in a different way. And is it more about how the hell do we learn what their language is rather than trying to force our own? And so how the hell do we learn to communicate with them in that way?
Great. Yeah, great. Yeah, you're exactly correct. They don't speak English or Spanish or French. So animals' language is energy. Their language is energy. If ever you watch dogs meet, they just need to raise an eyebrow from 100 meters away and the other dog totally perceives that. That's like volume 10 in a dog's universe, and yet we're completely oblivious to it. Their tail is in a certain position, which sends a message immediately to the other dog. You know, they lick. They have so many different ways that they communicate to another dog, that they're aggressive, dominant, submissive, you know, whatever, friendly or whatever. So when we say sit, 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 there's a demand. If somebody was coming into your house and going, Alan, sit, 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 you know, what does that make you do? Well, it makes you switch off, look away.
Well, especially if I don't understand, because it reminds me of that kind of Simpsons. Or I think there's a card where it says, "This is how you talk to your dog." Now, you know, blah 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 blah, whatever it is, and the dog's looking at you, going, and all it can hear is blah 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 blah, and that's what it is they don't really understand the words at all.
Yes. So coming back to their language is energy. When you and I were first born as babies, our very first language is energy. We communicate to our environment and to our family around us from energy because we haven't learned to speak our native tongue yet. So the other thing about being with animals is it gets you to be more present with, what if you don't need words? What if you don't even need hand signals? You know, you may in the early days when you're training your dog, as you said earlier, but what you're doing is you're creating a communion with the animals. You're learning to speak and reach them in their language. You're being aware of what language they require of you. And I don't mean we're going to get down on all fours and raise our eyebrow or wag our tail, you know, I don't mean it in that way, but we can become a lot more aware of the very, very subtle cues that we are giving physically to animals all the time. You know, and a classic example is, oh, well, I'm scared of dogs. I got bitten once and then I got bitten twice. Mm. When you're in a state of fear, it creates what we call a pattern of disharmony. So animals are hypersensitive to this. This is why people get bitten time and time again, because, of course, their experience has been, I've been bitten, therefore dogs are dangerous. And so we project this. And every single dog we come across, we project this energy. So they perceive that and immediately they feel unsteady and unstable and challenged because this is a funky energy. You know how I was saying earlier with the horse, that her heightened state of anxiety is not a natural state for animals. They choose to be. So everything around it tries to contribute to changing that energy. But for humans, for two-legged people, they tend to have no understanding and no connection to what energy they're being. Then what that's sending as a message, not just to animals, but to people, because whether we acknowledge it or not, we do perceive energy in other people. Mm-hmm. We do react, we do start playing out dynamics with other people. So for me, this is where the animals are great facilitators, because they allow us to become more aware of what energy am I being that's creating this certain situation in my life. And animals will show you dynamically what energy you're being, because they're not worried about being polite or hurting your feelings or, you know, saying the right thing or doing the right thing. They're like babies. They're like small kids. They will just give you the truth. They will show you dynamically where you're at.
Because they don't really have, as you said, they don't really have a point of view.
No.
And, you know, I mean, we had two cats that, you know, they were, yeah, they caught mice and they were around, and they both knew, because that was when I had them. That was when I was kind of having my depression and or my period of depression, and they always know when I would have a really bad day, like a really down day, and they would just come in and sit with me. One of them would never sit on my lap; she always sat on my partner's lap. Yeah. But she would come in, and so there is that. Or they would walk into the room and they would just look at me, and I would know that they wanted food or they wanted something. And don't ask me how. I mean, I you know, it's like I don't kind of go, oh well, I don't kind of shy away from it. It just used to make me laugh, and I used to take it for granted that okay, I knew what the cats were desiring.
Yes.
But I think, sorry, go.
Yeah, so that's another great point, because what they do is when you notice those cues, whether they're subtle or obvious, it's like you're already beginning to communicate with animals. So for a lot of the viewers that are animal lovers, would you be willing to acknowledge where you're actually already doing this? Mm. You know, we have this desire, we have this curiosity to the animal kingdom, even if we don't have animals, you know, like you said earlier, but we do actually communicate with them whether we acknowledge it or not. I walked up to, I had 10 minutes or so before a client the other day, and I was visiting her at her house, and next to her there's a field with a bull in it. And I just got drawn to go and stand by the gate and just lean on the gate and look at the beautiful view and breathe the air and feel the sun on my skin. And this bull from across the field literally paid so much attention to me, and he was having a conversation. Like, I don't speak bull, you know, but I could sense this energy that this bull was curious. He was inquisitive. And I'm like, wow, imagine if I was having a conversation with him right now, what would he be saying to me? Because he was really checking me out, and he took quite a few steps towards me. I wasn't delivering any kind of, you know, aggressive behavior. I was genuinely curious, and it was like I was almost reaching into his universe to go, wow, I've never connected with a bull before. He's magnificent. Look at his horns. Wow, what a handsome creature. And so something you touched on earlier was the projections that we have of animals. If you are telling something that it's ugly or stupid or dumb, well, how do you think they're going to react to that? If somebody told you, sit, oh, you stupid, and you know, you're dumb because you don't get it, does that inspire you to want to be with that person more and try and connect? Or does it make you go, well, stuff you? And a lot of animals, as well as people, totally shut down when they've been spoken to like that, or when they've had this constant projection of, you're ugly, you're short, you're fat. You know, how many times, oh, look at that fat dog. Well, hello, who's feeding it? You know, who could change that if the dog's fat? But if you project and judge an animal for being old, ugly, fat, a nuisance, naughty, bad, a terror, you know, people even say, oh God, he's such a terror, you're such a monkey. That again adds to those mixed messages. And so this is where we see these quote unquote behavioral problems, because we, their leaders, whether we're aware of it or not, we are the leaders in their life. We give them messages that are telling them stupid. So of course, if somebody tells you you're stupid or dumb all the time, you become that projection. So what if you'd be willing to acknowledge your animals like I did with this bull? Wow, you're gorgeous. Look at the color of your coat. Look at your horns. What a handsome man. Acknowledge your dog. Thank you for being part of the family. Thank you for barking. Rather than telling it off and smacking it, okay, how else can I deal with this dog differently that he will start to understand me? When the cat comes up to you and comforts you, wow, thank you. I really get that you understand. I'm not feeling 100% right now. Thank you for noticing. Thank you for contributing and sitting on my lap and purring. So, you know, this is so different in the way that we would normally have animals, where they're almost sometimes they become a cast-off, or they become a burden almost, and we start to ignore them. And this is where I said earlier, we start to have these quote-unquote behavioural problems. They're not behavioural, they're just turning the volume up to go, I'm really unhappy here, and the only way I know to get your attention is to chew the furniture, is to bite people, is to growl, is to develop skin problems, or is to develop a weird health condition, because animals don't speak English, but they will communicate in a way that they know to try and, you know, get our attention to something. So what if you could start understanding what's going on and not jump to the conclusion of they're bad or they're stupid or it's ill or it needs the vet? Or what if you could have tools to be able to reach into that animal's universe and go, hey, what is going on? Could you show me? Could you tell me what it is that's going on? Yeah.
I think, you know, you touched on something there which, you know, I mean, if you look at a child, if you keep beating a child because it's not doing what you want and telling it it's naughty and it's bad and it will never be any good and blah, 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 what does the child do? It just continues what it's doing in a more extreme way. And whilst it's not that I'm saying perhaps we should kind of look at animals as children, but they just have that similar awareness or that similar kind of thing, which is the more you hit them and tell them they're bad and wrong and stupid, the more they're going to just go to you, do you know what, I'm just not having that from you.
Yeah.
Whilst there'll be an allowance of us, it doesn't mean to say that they should be doormats.
Yes. And again, thank you for that, because, you know, when I said earlier, we tend to treat our animals as people. So if your child's bad, I mean, I know it's probably highly illegal these days, but when I was a kid, and probably when you were a kid, a quick clip around the ear or a quick smack across the bottom was normal.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a big deal. So again, if you go to correct, i.e. a dog that's barking or it's chewed something or it's, you know, it's warranted in the owner's universe, if it's warranted punishment, how would a dog punish another dog? Watch animals correct themselves. So if you look at a mum and puppies, if ever you get to you know, the chance to watch a mum with how she teaches her puppies from day one, is she will get the hold of their back of the neck, she'll mouth them, she'll put pressure on them. Sometimes with their two canine teeth, they'll give a little like this to the neck. It's not a bite, but it's a, hey, pay attention. So, you know, instead of smacking a dog, which is what, you know, we would do to children, not, but you know what I mean? That would be what we would accept. When our dog behaves, we naturally revert back to a behavior that we think is applicable.
Yeah.
And only because information may not be in the owner's universe as to, if I need to reprimand my dog, how do I show it? How do I teach it that barking at somebody or growling or putting inside or whatever is not appropriate? So you start to understand the language rather than reverting to ours, and acknowledging the dog or the animal when it's done what you would like it to do. Good boy. You know, we do that with children. You reinforce when they give you what you're asking for, acknowledge them. The acknowledgement goes such a long way. that little bit of praise, that little bit of encouragement, that little bit of reward, it's like, yes, this is great. This is what's going to build the relationship in the community and clear any confusion and the mixed messages that you're giving to your animals.
So one other thing I wanted to ask you was about, you touched on it earlier on with, you know, animals being taken into hospitals and hospices and places where, you know, they kind of give relief to the, or, you know, whatever it is, to the patients, the children, whatever, who are kind of stroking or petting or whatever. So, you know, I'm aware of certain circumstances, you know, of people kind of I've spoken to where their dog has, you know, they had cancer and then suddenly their dog had cancer and then their cancer went into remission and the dog died. So, you know, I don't see that as coincidence myself, but then we don't really view that as a capacity, do we?
Exactly. So this is a great topic, because this is something I talk about a bit in the Talk to the Animals class, because again, this is not information that I personally had found anywhere else before I came across. You know, I actually started to read Gary Douglas's book, Talk to the Animals, which is available on the Access website. And it totally revolutionized my way of looking at animals. And it tapped into something I always knew as a kid, you know, because I think if you're an animal lover, it's with you from a very young age. You can start to learn to love animals. But anyway, I digress a little bit. But what I discovered was there are certain animals who are healing animals. I've come across horses when I've done the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider workshops and the Talk to the Animals. I've come across animals that have been given a specific role. So, for instance, I had a racehorse that was supposed to be a racehorse. And this horse wasn't racing and it wasn't winning and it kept going lame. It kept having all of these problems, but it was a racehorse. It was bred to be a racehorse. And after a while, I kind of managed to work the owner's point of view a little bit to go, you know, didn't you have something going on with your legs a while ago? And, you know, didn't you have something going on with your back and you couldn't work and you couldn't train the horses? And from that, did you find another way? And it was, you know, to live their life. And I said, it almost sounds a bit similar to the horse, doesn't it? Like the horses. And so I found a way to kind of correlate, possibly put the idea in their universe that, hey, there's some similarities here. You could look at it as a coincidence, or you could look at, wow. Anyway, this particular person was really interested in this. And I said, well, and then I went on to, some animals are healing animals, meaning they have a capacity to actually facilitate anything that's going on in our bodies. They have a capacity to facilitate other people. So a friend of mine had a dog, and whenever she had parties, she often had social occasions. The dog would go and sit by one person for the whole lunch or the whole evening. And then after, you know, an hour or an hour and a half, and it would just lay at this person's feet. It didn't want petting or fussing. It wasn't, you know, kind of pawing or whatever. And then the dog, I'd watch, and the dog would get up and it would go to somebody else for half an hour, 20 minutes, an hour. And afterwards I went, that dog's actually contributing something to that person. So, you know, like you said, is it a coincidence? Is it a capacity? Is it something that the animals do? I think yes. From what I've observed, I definitely would agree with that. And for the viewers that are watching, I'd say, okay, do you have a pet, or do you know of an animal that's actually facilitating something beyond their, you know, their specified role, like the racehorse? And is your animal creating health conditions, quote unquote, health conditions that could mirror or mimic somebody in the household? That maybe is there something going on? Is that animal actually facilitating a healing? And so if it is, if you get, well, yeah, I think maybe my dog is helping my mum with her breast cancer or whatever it is. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you to the dog. Wow, I've never acknowledged before that you're actually healing her. Do you think that would change something in the dog's universe if you actually start to acknowledge and appreciate and encourage what that dog is doing? And it's not a right or wrong.
Yeah, I totally, yeah. It's kind of, when you really start getting into this, there's so much more that's possible with animals, I think, than we ever considered, in terms of the contribution they can be, the contribution they can receive, the things they can teach us, in terms of, as you said earlier, that being present that being aware of actually everything that's going on around you and noticing stuff like, you know, as literally before we did the hangout, you know, I was walking, and I live in kind of, I live in the Green Place in southeast London, you know, we're near Greenwich Park, but a dragonfly flew past me as I was going to the shop before the hangout. It's like, and I'm like, where, what? You know, there's no water.
Yeah.
So what's a dragonfly doing in the middle of suburbia?
Actually, you've just brought me back to something you were talking about earlier about how do I make peace with the mosquitoes or wasps or bees or flies or bitey things that fly, you know. It amuses me in a very respectful way that when I do come to the Northern Hemisphere, you know, and it's wasp season or bee season.
yeah. Wasps, I think, is the biggest one for many people. It's like they, you know, I find myself doing it, and I'm not really scared of them.
Yes. So, and you know, wasps have no problem stinging people. They don't think twice about stinging people. So going back to the horse, I'm just going to use this as an analogy. Go back to the horse with the dragonflies. Energetically, for me, I saw them changing whatever disharmony was being created, and then the swallows contributed. So when we're doing this, what energy are we emitting? And do those people, I often ponder this, do those people end up getting stung more? I'll sit there and go, cool. Wow, hello, beautiful. Wow, what gorgeous wings. You know, and people think I'm completely barking mad, but I never get stung. I never get bitten by mosquitoes. I never have a problem wherever I travel in the world with the local, oh, you have to put lots of spray on and stuff, which I never do. I make friends with the mosquitoes, as weird as it sounds. It's like, you know what, guys, hey, I'm here, but I'm not really tasty. You know, I'm not really that good for you. I'm not really that tasty. I'm happy for you to land on me, but you don't really need to bite me. You don't need to suck my blood. You don't need to sting me. And I just sit there and allow myself to be at one and ask, okay, so what patterns of harmony, what harmony can I be to be at one with the wasps, the mosquitoes, the flies, the ants coming into the house, or, you know, what harmony can I be? Because if I'm harmonious, they don't see my energy as distorted. They don't see my energy as erratic or a threat or anything that needs to be corrected.
So I'm just writing that down. What harmony can I be?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think as well, I mean, using the access tools myself, I mean, I don't really use them with, it's never even occurred to me to use them with wasps, but it's almost like, okay, so what contribution can the wasp and I be for each other? Rather than kind of immediately going, you know, just ask a question. Because I know as well, you know, again, the question I would be is, who the hell am I being when I'm batting this wasp away? Because if it's a bee, actually, I have no issue with bees. And I used to be terrified of bees as a child. I was stung as a baby when I sat on a bee when I was about 2.5, and they had to take me to hospital, and the nurse had to actually had to suck my bum cheek to get the poison out my bum. So I was terrified of bees for a long time, and now actually I can pick them up and I have no issues with it at all. But wasps, I find myself, you know, when they're in the house, I actually just let them do what they want to do. When I'm out, I find I go into that mimicking behavior of other people.
And that is another really brilliant point, because I facilitated a conscious horse, conscious rider class in Norway recently. And 3 days prior to that, I was facilitating a 2-day talk to the animals class. And I had, you know, a bunch of people there with dogs. And this lady said to me, oh, I'm not coming to, I'm terrified of horses. I'm not coming to the horse class. I don't see the point in coming to the horse class. And after about 20 minutes, she just suddenly burst out laughing. And I said, do you want to share something? And she said, oh my God, I've just realized that what I just said about me being terrified of horses is not actually mine. It was my dad's. He was terrified of horses, and so he projected all of that fear to me, and he kept me away from horses. Every time she'd walk up to them in the neighbour's paddock or put a hand out to, you know, to pat a horse or whatever, her father would just come in like this swooping eagle and pull her back. And so as a child, she took on all of this stuff, and yet at the horse class, she was the most changed person. She was a bit anxious about coming into the ring, but I invited her in just to stand with his horse and put her hands on him and just stroke him. And that, just that alone, changed her entire reality to do with fear. So how many places, you know, have we bought from somebody else that we're frightened of dogs, or that we're frightened of wasps or snakes or spiders, when what if we could actually be in communion with them? What if we could actually receive the contribution that the spiders are in the corner of the bedroom, or the frogs are in the pond, or the things that we think that we're funny about? I've just been to see a family friend, and there was a spider that was about this big crawling across the wall. You would have think that 50 snakes had entered the room. She flipped. She said, "Oh, I just stomp on them. I just splattered them everywhere, and then I ran out of the house screaming." And my sister's there, really gently, ever so gently, chasing the spider around the wall, trying to catch it and carry it and save it outside, while this other woman's absolutely doing her lid on a spider. And I thought, how many people get stuck in this? And this woman's 80.
Yeah,
this lady's 80 years old, and she's lived her entire life with being terrified of spiders.
My mother was like that as a child, and I, like you were saying about giving dogs a job. When we have spiders in our house, I give them a job. I ask them to catch the flies. So we had this spider that lived in our kitchen, kind of just in the corner of the kitchen window, and he must have been there, or he or she must have been there for 6 months, just every other couple of days, just changing the web. We had no flies in the kitchen at all. It was awesome. We called it George. It was like, when we kind of conversed with George every morning as I was making coffee. It was really funny. And eventually he moved across the other side of the kitchen and then disappeared. But yeah, we had no flies in the house at all. It was awesome.
And this is the thing, if you have no point of view, you don't have to be an animal lover, but you also don't have to carry all the fears and the doubts and the worries and insecurities that everybody else does.
Yeah.
Often, I had a big dog. She's gone to doggy heaven recently, but I had a very large dog, and she was very friendly, but she looked very threatening. So, of course, people with toddlers or small children and even adults were like grabbing hold of their kid and pulling the child. "Oh, be careful of the dog." And I'm like, that kid's 4 years old. My dog would just sit there, and most children just want to, "Can I pat the doggy? Can I pat your dog?" And it's like, yeah, absolutely. And I'd just get her to drop down, because she was a very big dog and quite imposing to a little person. And I would just ask her to drop down, and I would ask her, "Will you be friendly?" So I don't say to her, "Be friends." I ask her, "Will you be friendly with this person?" And it's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And the children, and to see what would change in the parent's face when I could allow that space, when I could be that space of harmony and invite the child in and go and reassure the parent, "You know what, she's great with kids. Do you want to pat her?" Look at the contribution my dog was being to changing people's realities. And this is where we go. So the class is so, it just, a lot of the time in the class, I admit, it moves me to tears, because to see how easily people's relationships with animals, whether they bring their dogs to class or whether they don't have animals, to see the shift that they have so easily. Because the other thing about animals is we receive differently from animals. We don't have our barriers up. We don't have our past in the way. We don't have all our points of view. And so I think people who do love animals, they have a different way of being, because for that time that they're with their animals, stroking the dog, or watching the cows in the field, or whatever it is, those barriers dissolve. There's a level of vulnerability, there's a level of gratitude and appreciation and connection that's available that we wouldn't have with people, because we've automatically got our defense systems up because of some past story. We've been hurt, we've been burnt, we've been betrayed or lied to or whatever. And so again, this is another door that I see, especially when we have the animals in the class. And this is what I love about Talk to the Animals, because you get to bring your animals to class. And if you don't have an animal, you get to be around the animals that are there and practice the tools that you've learned with other animals, because they just invite you into a space where you let go of so many of your points of view. They invite you into their universe where there's no judgment. There's no separation. They don't care if you're tall or short or fat or thin or black or white or, English or Spanish or German. They don't have those separations. They don't have those points of view. So they're such a gift, way beyond the domestic role. Yeah.
So if people wanted to find out more about the Talk to the Animals classes and, do a class with you or another facilitator, how would they go about doing that?
So there's a couple of different ways you can find out. My website is on the bottom of this hangout if you want to know more about the classes. I've got a few penciled in for next year in the Northern Hemisphere. We've got a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider coming to Hungary in August, I think August next year, July, summertime next year. There's a Talk to the Animals in Norway. There'll be Conscious Horse, Conscious Riders and Talk to the Animals in the UK as well in the summertime next year.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the Southern Hemisphere. So on my website, you'll see the classes. You can also go to accessconsciousness.com, click on classes and look at animals. There are other facilitators around the world that do the Talk to the Animals classes and the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes as well. So that's the other way to find other facilitators. And the book I mentioned earlier is Talk to the Animals, written by Gary Douglas, which you can probably find on Amazon.com, but it's also available via the Access Consciousness website as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So if there's one other thing that you could give people to take away today from this hangout, what would it be in terms of talking to animals and communing and being with them?
Well, thanks, because this is another really good pointer as well. It's like, what if you could be more aware of the animals around you? What if you could just right now ask, hey, animals, where are you? Show me. Where are you? What contribution do you wish to be for me that I haven't received or acknowledged? What contribution can you be for me that I haven't received or acknowledged? So when I first started doing some of these animal classes, again, I live most of the year in Australia and I come to the UK for probably 4 or 5 months. And we've got, because grass doesn't really grow in Australia, not where I live, it's too dry. But we've put some turf around the house just as a, it's just nice to look out and see green turf. And I was walking to work one morning and I just heard this, hey, hey, hey. And I'm looking around and it said under here, and I'm not joking, under a blade of grass, there was a bright green frog, half the size of my little fingernail. And I just looked under this blade of grass and he was absolutely tiny. And I just went, it just sounds, again, it just brought me to tears. I'm like, I would never have seen you. You were underneath a blade of grass in a, in an area that there's thousands of blades of grass. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know you were there. You've just absolutely brightened my day. Tiny, tiny, tiny little frog. So what if you'd be willing to receive the contribution and the communion that every animal around you right now wishes to be, whether you live in a flat in the centre of London, whether you live in suburbia, whether you live on a farm. What if you could just start to acknowledge the animals for the contribution that they wish to be, that we've never really known, maybe for a lot of people before they've watched this hangout. Welcome to the animal kingdom in a whole different reality, in a whole different realm.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Viv. That's been an eye-opener for me in a number of ways. And I'll kind of share that with you after. But yeah, that's brilliant. So I hope everyone who's listening got something from that. And go to vivadcock.com and find out more about communing with animals, because there's a lot more to it than you think.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Alan, for this time. I love animals. I love talking about them. I love being with them. And for those viewers out there, what would it take for you to receive the contribution they wish to be?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Viv. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.